Hi,
I'm Eleanor. I'm 59, and somehow I'm falling for the town's best mechanic.
I'm Casey, 27.
And she's not complaining.
Not even a little.
If you arrest her, you arrest me, Eleanor said, and the tasting room, the one with the oil portrait of her late husband, went quiet enough to hear the fermenters breathe. My hands still smelled like diesel from the morning's alternator swap. The sheriff hesitated. The deputy held up a plastic bag with a brass grape key ring inside, like it might mouth a confession. Margot, Eleanor's sister-in-law, said, "Check her truck." Gossip has quick feet in our valley. By the time I blinked, half the town had decided what kind of girl I am. Then, the first time I saw Eleanor march up close, her Land Rover was coughing in my bay like an old smoker, and she was apologizing to it under her breath as if it had a soul. "It does," she said when I told her that out loud. "It's older than you, that counts for something." She was 59, all clean lines and quiet grief, the silver at her temples catching the shop's buzzing lights. I was 27 with oil on my knuckles and the only garage sign left in a town where corporate logos had swallowed everything bright. I topped off her coolant and made a note about the timing chain. She watched, hands tucked in the pockets of a navy linen jacket, the color of the river after rain. "You own this place?" she asked. "Bought it from Earl when his back gave out." I wiped my palms on a rag. "It's Hart's garage because I'm Hart. Casey Hart." She said my name like it was something to taste. Eleanor March. Like I didn't know. The March estate sat at the top of the hill, a stone house with a set of iron gates that liked to stick when it got hot. Her husband had died the winter before. We all watched the black-clad line snake past the crypts under the cypress trees. The March label, curled script, a heron in flight, had paid for a library wing and 2 Little League seasons when the city forgot us. "You'll need a new fan clutch by fall," I said. "And the gate at your place needs grease." Her mouth shaped a half smile that landed a beat late. "The gate and I are still getting acquainted." "How are you getting acquainted with the rest of it?" The question came out before I could fold it back. She looked at the Rover's hood. "The rest of it is loud. People assume I know what I'm doing because I have keys." She touched the brass grape fob dangling from her own ring, then set it on the counter with a soft clink. "I'm learning." We stood in the hum of the shop a while, the air sweet with antifreeze and coffee. When she left, she took my last business card and an abandoned scarf she'd used to hold her hair back. I watched the Land Rover vanish down Main while I held the scarf, still smelling faintly of cedar. My crew, 2 part-timers who could swap out brakes blindfolded, pretended not to watch me tuck her card into my wallet like it was fragile. Now. Sheriff Dana Colson didn't move her boots. She knows me. She's brought her cruiser to me since her kids were in middle school. "Let's slow down," she said, eyes sliding from me to the family cluster at the bar. Bennett, Margot's son, shined loafers, a tie clip that looked like it cost more than my torque wrench, pressed forward. "The cash box is gone," he said, "and the taste of in. Great-grandfather's with the crest." "The silver cup," someone whispered, half in awe. "The cellar key ring, too," Margot added. "We've all seen her go in and out of the office these last months. She fixed a window. She had opportunity. Opportunity, like it's a sin people like me can't be trusted with." I felt my jaw lock. Eleanor stepped closer to me. Her hand brushed mine. It wasn't a dramatic gesture, not for the crowd, but I felt her fingers warm and steady, and I anchored to that and to the sound of a fermenter sighing behind the wall. Casey had permission to be there, she said, from me. And more than permission, Margot cut in like she'd been practicing the words. Let's not pretend this is platonic, Eleanor. White noise roared in my ears. Half the tasting room craned to get a better look at my face. Eleanor's chin lifted. We don't pretend here. We make wine and tell the truth. I heard my own voice come out level, the way it did when an axle bolt stuck, and I didn't want to spook the thread. Sheriff, can we go someplace private? But nothing's private when an inheritance is at stake. Then, we didn't so much start as drift. She called about the gate. I went up with a tub of grease and a sledgehammer. The blackbirds watched from the vineyard wires, their songs thin in the heat. We timed our work to the wind. May I said, hand hovering over the latch. Consent isn't just for bodies. Please, she said, the word both permission and relief. I freed the gate. She brought me inside for tea late in the afternoon when the house held on to the day's warmth and the kitchen smelled like lemon zest and history. We stood over a chipped mug with a hairline crack that had threaded itself from lip to base. She apologized for not buying new ones, said she couldn't get herself to throw the old ones out. I understand, I said, because I did. This town loved its chips and its cracks. We measured ourselves by what we kept going. She showed me the cellar. It was cool and awake, the way places get when no one's talking. She held a little silver cup, a taste fin, she said, with the family crest inside the bowl, a shallow, dimpled thing made to catch light. She wore her widowhood like armor, carefully polished to keep the world from noticing the dents. I followed her through rows of bottles and thought about the word estate and how many meanings it contained. You're quiet, she said. I think better when I'm not performing, I said. And that made her smile, just a corner, like a secret. We walked the vineyard at dusk. I asked about pruning, about sun exposure, about what a cordon is. She asked about my shop, and I told her about Earl, about my dad's hands, about how the weights at the gym helped me sleep when a day's noise clung stubborn as sap. Do you get tired of being underestimated? She asked. Only when it keeps me from doing the work, I said. And sometimes it's a relief. People don't see you coming. She laughed, late, deliberate, like she was deciding whether to let it out. It made me want to hear it again. On my way back down the hill, the iron gate slid smooth as breath. Now. The plastic bag with the brass grape K-ring glinted under the tasting room lights. Sheriff Coulson turned it over, studying the fob. Where'd this come from? She asked. In her glove box, Bennett said. I saw it when she drove up for the gala. I hadn't opened my glove box in a week. My spine lit up with electricity. That specific contained burn of anger you can't let move your hands. May I see it? Eleanor asked. The deputy looked at the sheriff. The sheriff nodded. Eleanor took the bag. Her fingers, long, precise pianist's hands, tilted the fob, and the 3 old keys looped on it. It's not ours, she said. You could feel the collective flinch, then silence, like everyone was bracing for the rest. How would you know? Margot demanded. A bunch of old keys. This house is all locks, Eleanor said. You learn their faces. The one to the desk has a notch, a tiny nick near the shoulder where Richard dropped it on the terrazzo 20 years ago. He complained about the imperfection every time he turned it. She squinted. This one is clean. You could have it cleaned, Bennett said, too fast. Metal doesn't unscar, I said. Sheriff Coulson's gaze sharpened. We'll still need to talk, Casey. Of course, I said, swallowing, but I didn't take anything. I know, Eleanor said. She kept her eyes on me as she said it, like the rest of the room had gone out of focus. Then, people talk. We'd taken our time, and they still talked. They saw me in her passenger seat once at the farmer's market and rewound it like a surveillance clip. They watched us compare the price of strawberries. They speculated about the nights. The couple at the diner paused their pancakes to gape when I leaned across the table to tuck a stray hair behind Eleanor's ear. "Does it bother you?" she asked later in the kitchen, the kettle working itself up to a whistle, splinters of afternoon sunlight slipping across the tile. "It bothers me that it might bother you," I said. Truths looked better in her house. I said more of them than I was used to. "I'm not embarrassed, if that's what you're asking. I've lived here my whole life. The town either ignores you or catalogs you. Sometimes both." "I don't want to bring you trouble," she said. "You don't bring me trouble," I said. "You bring me tea." She unfolded the tea towel with a care that made me ache. "I loved him. I need you to understand that." "I do," I said. And I did. You can love one person, and then, after the world changes shape, you can love another. It doesn't make the first one less true. "How old are you, Casey?" she asked, not coy, not nervous. 27, I said. "You?" 59. She watched me like my answer might mean more than a number. "Is that a problem?" "If it is, it's an interesting problem," I said. And when she laughed, the sound finally came easier. I didn't kiss her then. I fixed her gate again when a heat wave turned the valley into a pan. I replaced the fan clutch on the rover and showed her how to listen for the change in the idle. We walked slow rows under a skinny moon. When harvest started, the air around the winery got its own weather, a humid exhale of yeast and sugar that settled into your hair. People looked, and we learned to let them. When I finally kissed her, it was because she asked. We were in the truck cab after a late run into town for takeout. Windows fogged just enough to turn Main Street into a watercolor. She touched my wrist. "May I?" she said, voice as steady as a level. "Yes," I said. And then we stopped talking. We were careful. Careful like you are with a good tool. Respectful, sure of what it deserves. We were clumsy once, with the dog barking at the wrong time, with me laughing against her throat when she tried to shush me and then couldn't stop smiling herself. We were soft, and then not soft, and then soft. Again, when we let the lights go out, it was because we chose the dark. In the morning, I woke before her and traced the seam of light that had found the curve of her shoulder. Her hand lay on my stomach, claiming nothing and everything. When she opened her eyes, there was a moment, small, bright, where she looked surprised and then relieved, like she'd dreamed me and was glad I'd stayed. Now, the gala was supposed to be about the new release and the scholarship fund. They dragged a projection screen to the tasting room and laid out cheese on boards the size of cutting blocks. The kids from the high school jazz band were going to play. It had all been arranged to project stability, the label enduring, the house intact. Then someone shouted about the missing money, the staff payroll envelope, and the taste bin, and the keys, and the night turned into a hard-edged thing one mistake away from drawing blood. "I'll come down to the station after," I said to Sheriff Coulson. "I'll do it tonight. I'll answer every question. But I'm not leaving her here to deal with this alone." "That's rich," Bennett hissed, and a few people laugh the way you laugh when it's safer to be with the heat than against it. "You're already elbow deep in her business." "Stop," Eleanor said. She set the plastic bag on the bar with a careful click, then lifted her chin. "Before we go any further, I need to say something." "Eleanor," Margot warned. We'll get to the cup and the box, Eleanor went on. But before that, Casey and I are together. She is the love of my life, not the help. If you're going to use that to decide what you think about this theft, do it out loud so we can see you. Silence. Then a few low sounds. Someone cleared a throat. Someone else set down a glass with more force than necessary. Congratulations, Margot said flatly. Announce your midlife crisis all you want. This doesn't change the facts. The money is gone. The cup is gone. Eleanor folded her hands. Are you certain? What? Are you certain they're gone? Her tone had moved to a new register, cool and careful, the one she used when she decided about harvest dates. She turned to Sheriff Coulson. Dana, would you mind if I showed something to the room? I think it will save you time. Depends what it is. A very short film, she said, and when she spoke to the staffer at the AV table, the young woman looked relieved to have a job with edges. The projector whirred to life, the room dimmed. For a second, we were all the same, faces tipped up, waiting. On the screen, the door to the estate office. The angle was slightly cockeyed, the image gritty, the timestamp in the corner. Midnight 3 nights earlier. A shadow moved, then a man, careful, looking over his shoulder so we could see his face. He used a key on a cord around his wrist to unlock the desk. He took out an envelope and a small, round silver cup that caught the camera's modest light in quick points like a shallow, dim star. Bennett's tie clip flashed in the reflection of his phone's light. No one spoke. The video clicked off. The jazz clarinetist coughed. Convenient, Margot said finally, but her voice didn't have a place to land. I didn't tell anyone I'd put the camera there, Eleanor said. Not because I wanted a spectacle. Because I wanted the truth. Dana, you were with me when I found my office rifled 2 weeks ago. We changed the locks. You have the receipts. Sheriff Coulson inclined her head, slow. I do. And we moved the taste fin. It's been insecure since Richard died. A small seam showed in her voice. She sewed it shut with breath. I put it in the library safe. You didn't tell us, Margot snapped. I didn't tell you because you would have argued, Eleanor said, and the air growled briefly, half laugh, half warning, from someone by the door. We will, of course, confirm the video's chain of custody, the sheriff said, recovering her official voice. And Bennett will need to talk to you tonight. Bennett shook. It looked like rage until you got closer and noticed the fear. She's setting me up, he said wildly, and a piece of me, the part that still wanted to believe in the good sense of people who had never given me reason to, felt sorry for him. You put the fake ring in my truck, I said. It wasn't a question. The timing of the little shock drops of anger finally resolved into a map. He must have tugged my glove box the night he stopped by the shop with a flat. It would have taken him 30 seconds. This is absurd, he said. Let's all step into the office, Sheriff Coulson said. Now. No, Eleanor said, and the word came like a chime struck clean. We'll absolutely go with you. But first, I'm ending this here, publicly, where it started. She reached for my hand and didn't hide the reach. Casey works in this town. She owns a business here. Her name is not an empty vessel for your stories. I invited her into my house and my life. If you're going to punish someone for that, punish me. The room held its breath. Somewhere in the back, a cork popped. Some poor kid had bumped a wire. It sounded like a shot. Dana caught my eye. Casey, she said softer, you can wait outside with her if you'd like. I'd like, I said. We walked through the ring of faces, The ones that wouldn't meet my eyes told their own stories. The ones that did, Mr. Hahn from the post office, Alma from the diner, a couple vineyard hands I'd helped with their old Toyota, offered small nods, little hand lifts, tiny bridges thrown over. We stepped into the courtyard where the air smelled like rosemary and heat. The fountain kept making its small, patient sounds. I let myself breathe. Eleanor kept her fingers laced with mine, as if we were a part of the same simple machine. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" My voice came out rough. "For telling the truth? For not expecting what would come of it," she said. She leaned her forehead against mine, an old prayer without words. "I should have told you about the camera. I was afraid I'd spook you. I started sneaking around like I did when I was 20, and I'm too old for that." "I'm glad you're 60 next March," I said, a smile cracking my face without permission. "You're very good at being too old for nonsense." 59 until then, she corrected, prim, and I laughed even as my chest ached. Sheriff Colson came out 15 minutes later. "We're bringing him in," she said, voice stripped of drama. "We'll sort the rest." "Thank you," I said, and meant more than the 2 words held. "Don't thank me yet," she said. "We still need to take statements." Her eyes gentled. "Casey, I should have told the room to back off, but she beat me to it." "She usually does," I said. And Eleanor squeezed my hand. Then, we lived in the space between necessary and courageous for a while. I learned the rhythms of the estate, the way the fog pooled in the low spot behind the barn, how the wind sounded like sandpaper against the cypress on dry days. She learned the rhythms of my shop, the racket of the air compressor, the click of my boots on concrete, how I hummed under my breath when I balanced a wheel. We were a pair of contradictions made of smaller ones. I was practical until I lost it over the color of sunset on a good grape skin. She was composed until I told a bad joke and she went helpless on the kitchen tile, laughing with her whole back. We ate standing up sometimes. We argued once about who should pay for new rotors on her Rover. We solved it by me doing the labor and her buying me a set of wrenches that fit my hand like they'd been made for it. The gossip sharpened when someone snapped a picture of us at the bowling alley on league night. It softened when we finished second, and I carried Eleanor's shoes to the car while she carried my winning pie. Then it sharpened again, because that's what gossip knows how to do. One night, before all the mess, we sat on the library floor at the estate, looking through a box of photographs. The pictures were old, black and white faces of men in high-waisted trousers, a woman with a kerchief at harvest, a baby with a bottle in one hand and a grape in the other. We found a picture of the Taste of Inn, bright in the middle of a bar table in 1948, with cigarette smoke rising like ghosts. "You'll keep it?" I asked. "I'll keep you," she said. And I kissed her until the past blurred. Now, it's odd what people remember about nights like that. Some will say the sheriff's voice, equal parts mercy and metal. Some will say the way Margot's mouth pinched when the video showed her son's face. Some will say the jazz band starting anyway, because the kids needed their set, because adults had sucked up enough oxygen. I remember Eleanor's shoulder pressed against mine on the courthouse bench while we waited to give our statements. The hall smelled like pledge and bad coffee. A fluorescent light sputtered. I remember the worn spot on the floor where the bailiff's chair always sat, how a groove can be a kind of history. I remember Eleanor's breath, slow, steady, counting me back into my body. "You don't have to hold my hand if you don't want to," I said, aware that a deputy could walk by and decide to have an opinion. She squeezed. "I want to." I let myself lean. I thought about how many people in that room were old enough to be my mother, How many had known me since I was a kid, wiping down Earl's shop counter in the summers? I was no one new. I was just visible in a way that made the edges of some people's belief systems squeal. When we were done, we stepped out into the midnight bright of the parking lot. Crickets stitched the dark together. The air had a nickel tang. "Do you want to stay at the house?" she asked. "Yes," I said, "because there's more than one kind of safety." We drove home with the windows down. The truck wore the day's heat like a blanket. It wasn't ready to drop. At the top of the hill, the iron gate slid open like it had memorized us. Inside, we didn't turn on the lights right away. The house knew our shapes enough. In the kitchen, I poured water into 2 glasses with backs of ice clinking. She stood very still and then, slowly, took my face in those musicians' hands. "I love you," she said, and her voice had no adornment left. "I know," I said, and then, "I love you," because mirrors matter. We leaned into each other without the urgency of newness or the drama of panic. Just the wanting you get when a long day decides to end well. We found the bed half by memory. We took our time. When the moment came that would tilt us into detail, we let it fade, as we do, into breath and warmth and the kind of touch that stops needing language. The morning was ours. We made coffee 2 strong and drank it on the steps, even though the stone was cold beneath us. The crows were loud. A vineyard hand drove by on a quad and waved like we'd just been neighbors forever. "I bought new mugs," she said, holding one up with a flicker of triumph. "Well, new to us. There's a church sale in Compton's. I couldn't resist. They were $1 for 4. She showed me a mug with a rooster and a chip shaped like Idaho. I laughed and wanted to keep laughing for months. "What will we do?" I asked. "We'll go to work," she said simply. "We'll make things and fix things. We'll take it day by day. We'll speak for ourselves until we don't have to." "And Margot? She can have my attention for 15 minutes this afternoon, and then never again if I can help it," Eleanor said, and kissed the rim of my mug like it was a blessing. "You're not going anywhere." "Neither are you," I said, and she smiled, that late smile I'd come to love, as if she'd waited her whole life to let it out. The town recalibrated, like a machine you didn't know had been out of alignment until someone adjusted the jacks. A few apologies arrived, some earnest, some half-baked. Alma slid me extra pie and said, "I didn't say anything bad, but I didn't say anything good either. I'm sorry." Which, for Alma, was a monologue. Mr. Hahn showed me a picture of his grandson in a onesie with tiny wrenches and mentioned his niece's Subaru needed a wheel bearing, which was his language for approval. Margot didn't soften. She retreated behind a set of legal papers and her own history. I saw her once at the grocer's, finger on a list, and she looked at me like I was a stain someone had missed on a banister. I didn't look away. We were past smallness. Bennett pled to a lesser charge. Money replaced money. The tasteful went back into the safe with the receipt paper and a note in Eleanor's hand that said, "Not for worship." I printed a sign on the garage wall and taped it above the register. "We fix what's broken." Sometimes I caught myself grinning at it like a fool. We had a harvest dinner in November when the vines were down to bones and the sky had that clear emptiness that makes you feel like you could see Santa Rosa from the back porch. We set up long tables in the barn, planks on sawhorses, tablecloths that didn't match, mismatched church sale plates, and fed the crew and whoever else wandered up the hill. Eleanor tuned a cello she hadn't touched since Richard's memorial. When she drew the bow across the string, the whole room lifted its head like a field of animals catching a scent. "You play?" I asked, afterward, though obviously she did. I used to, she said, and the late smile rose. Apparently I still do. Keep going, I said, and she did. Winter came. The vines slept under rain. My shop did the slow season ritual. Snow chains we didn't need, but someone always asked for. The heater clicking itself awake in the mornings. Me counting the days to the spring festival when everyone remembered their tires were bald. We drove out to the coast once, when it was cold enough to keep everyone home. We walked down a ropey path to the pebbled beach and watched a harbor seal for 20 minutes like it was a TV show. On the way back, the rover picked up a whining noise that made me itch. Left rear, I said, and she laughed and said, I trust you. Trust is a big word. It tastes bigger when you say it over ocean. At night, sometimes, I lay awake, listening to the house settle. Eleanor breathed with the same patience she brought to a stuck cork. I thought about the girl I'd been with holes in her jeans and a screwdriver in her pocket, and how she never would have guessed she'd end up here. Loved, defended, visible. I didn't romanticize it. People still watched. Some didn't wave. But I didn't flinch anymore when I reached for her hand. One afternoon in March, her birthday month, a light she wore without saying the number out loud, Eleanor handed me an envelope while we were sitting in the truck outside the feed store. What's this? I asked. A key, she said. I opened it. A simple house key. No brass scrapes, just a hardware store blank with March stamped in black on the top, because that's what I'd asked them to put on my shop keys when I ran out of blanks last year and didn't want to pick a new brand. The head of the key had a tiny nick near the shoulder, like it had been dropped on tile. I thought metal didn't unscar, I said. It doesn't, she said. It remembers. That's why it works. I slid the key onto my ring next to the big one for the garage and the church sale bottle opener. It settled there like it had been waiting. We sat a minute in the easy quiet we'd learned to make together. Happy close enough to your birthday, I said. She leaned across the console and kissed me, soft. Happy always, she said. I didn't know then how many small fights we'd win that year, against bad weather and worse lawyers and the one leak in the library roof that refused to be reasonable. I didn't know how often the town would surprise me, or how often it would disappoint me, or how many times I would choose to stay anyway. I only knew that I had work in the morning, and so did she, and we'd both come home to the same chipped mugs, and the same slow smile, and the same stubborn, necessary light. And when people asked, as they still do sometimes, how I could stand all the staring, all the talk, I tell them the truth. Engines are loud when they're about to give up, but they're loud when they're about to catch too. You learn to hear the difference. You learn where to put your hands. You learn what to tighten and what to let be. We kept what we could. The rest, we rebuilt.
Did you like the story? Hit that like button and tell me what you thought in the comments. Do you want to hear more stories? Subscribe and hit the bell. For exclusive content and early access, check out our Patreon. You can find the link in the description, or you can watch any of the videos shown on my right. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.